Hello, we're going to give folks maybe just another minute or two to join in, and then we'll get started. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to just give folks maybe another 30 seconds, and then we'll get started. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on Friday afternoon to hear more about this recent funding opportunity that OAP and GOMO have joined together to create. My name is Erica Ombres. I'm the program manager and acting deputy director for the Ocean Acidification Program. And myself and Liza Wright Fairbanks, also from the Ocean Acidification Program, will be walking through this NOFO for you guys today, just to go over some highlights there and see if you guys have any questions. If you have any questions, please do feel free throughout the presentation to put those in the chat box or the questions box. We will answer those as we can throughout the presentation. And then at the end, we'll read all the questions and answers aloud so that everyone can hear those. And any questions we're unable to answer during the presentation, we will get to afterwards, and we will post all of the questions along with the answers, along with the recording of the webinar and the slides, which have a few helpful links in them, onto our website, ideally next week, but definitely before the holidays. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Liza to get us started.
All right, thanks, Erica, and hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited to tell you more about this new opportunity. So for today's presentation, I'll go through just a brief agenda. Erica, if you can go to the next slide. Yeah. So we'll start just by giving an overview of the funding opportunity, then get into eligibility for applying to this, and then go through full proposal requirements as well as evaluation criteria for proposals, talk a little bit about grants.gov and ERA Commons, and then we'll have time for a question and answer session. And as Erica said, please put your questions into the chat box as we go, and we'll try to answer them along the way and at the end. So just an overview of this opportunity. If you'd like to read the full document, there's a direct link to the NOFO in the top right corner of this slide. But basically, the Ocean Acidification Program, in partnership with the Global Ocean Monitoring and Observing Program, GOMO, is soliciting proposals to optimize sampling strategies that improve carbonate chemistry observing systems co-developed with an observing data product end user that can inform real-time data delivery and forecasting of ocean acidification relevant parameters. So these optimization designs should be geared towards delivering the data needed to support the end user partner's specific decision support needs. So some funding details for this project. Applicants should submit proposals not to exceed $500,000 per year for projects that are generally 2 to 3 years in duration, with a total multi-year budget up to $1.5 million. And we do have 3 options or tracks for this NOFO, and they come with different funding levels. So I'll go through each of the options in more detail in a minute, But just so you know, option 1A, you can request up to $350,000 per year for 3 years. Option 1B is up to $200,000 per year for 3 years. And option 2 is up to $500,000 per year for 3 years. And should funds become available for this program, up to approximately $4 million will be available for the first year projects starting in FY24. So we anticipate funding 2 to 5 projects with expected start dates of September 1st of 2024. And all of this funding is contingent upon availability of funds which have not been appropriated at this time. And we also wanted to mention that full applications can cover a project period up to 3 years, but shorter term project proposals are also encouraged, and awards may be funded incrementally, generally on an annual basis, but once they're awarded, these awards won't compete for funding in subsequent years. So now we'll go through the details of each of our options, each of our tracks for under this NOFO. And kind of their targets and purposes. And I will mention that each of these tracks has different priorities, and I'll go through those priorities in detail after we talk about the options. So option 1A is an observing system optimization study that is US focused. And this is the option where you can propose up to $350,000 per year, up to 3 years. So the target region here are US large marine ecosystem regions, LMEs, for which sufficient data currently exists to allow for a fully consistent 3D analysis of the carbonate system. And the purpose of these projects is to evaluate how best to use monitoring assets to optimally characterize regionally integrated fields of interest at subseasonal to decadal timescales. Under these projects, applicants will work with a partner entity to assess existing relevant observing assets in the chosen region and evaluate potential gaps or redundancies in observing data. And we have a list here of some examples of carbonate parameters of interest, and those include carbonate mineral saturation states, calcium carbonate ion, pH, dissolved inorganic carbon, total alkalinity, or things like time of emergence indicators. And the fields of interest should be optimized for spatial and temporal resolutions that are relevant, again, to that partner entity's observing needs, and that should be clearly articulated in the proposal. And the option 1B is a similar observing system optimization study, but this is at a global scale. And for these, where you can apply for $200,000 per year up to 3 years. So the region here is the other side of the coin, so climate critical regions outside of US large marine ecosystems. So these could be places such as Southern Ocean, the tropics, or other open ocean regions. The purpose of these projects is to evaluate how best to use monitoring assets to optimally characterize carbon system parameters across timescales, including assessments of existing, redundant, or gaps in observing data. And for these, some parameters that will be considered are high accuracy climate quality observational parameters, including partial pressure or fugacity of carbon dioxide, total dissolved inorganic and organic carbon, particulate inorganic and organic carbon, total alkalinity, pH, and parameters that influence climate through biogeochemical feedbacks. Applicants to option 1B should address cutting edge challenges in ocean carbon and climate science. For instance, discrepancies between modeled and observational products of ocean uptake of carbon dioxide, or closing the ocean carbon cycle budget, etc. And proposals that include innovative platforms in carbon system observing design, such as autonomous surface vehicles, are also desired here. For project option 2, these are regional field intensives, and they're $500,000 per year for up to 3 years. The target region here, again, are US large marine ecosystems, and these are LMEs that lack the observational data to allow for the generation of a suitable nature model run. So the applicant should include a justification for why the field intensive is needed in this region, and that justification should include end user relevance. The purpose here is to characterize the subseasonal to decadal variability, which contributes the dominant error to the ocean carbonate system parameters of interest. I've written them out here again, but saturation states, carbonate ion pH, DIC, alkalinity, time of emergence, etc. And these are envisioned to adopt the short-term deployment and recovery of appropriate observing assets and conduct data analysis to establish the prerequisites for conducting an OSCE should subsequent funding become available. Additionally, for option 2, the projects should produce a detailed methodology document, for instance, a standard practices guide that details the field intensive approach. And this document could inform similar studies conducted in other large marine ecosystems should similar field intensive be advanced in the future. And these projects should include explicit partnerships with relevant modeling researchers to ensure that they're configuring the field intensive and the data outputs to be most usable in models relevant to that LME. So now I'll talk about priorities for the options. For options 1A and 2, these are our options that are in US large marine ecosystems. The studies proposed for 1A or 2 should be co-developed with a partner entity to target a US large marine ecosystem. We've listed them here. There's a link so you can do a little more looking to see how the regions are parsed out. But the focus area can extend from estuaries and coastal river mouths seaward to the outer margins of major currents or the edge of the continental shelf within these LMEs. Alternatively, proposals may be considered for subregions of a large marine ecosystem in cases where model fidelity is best optimized at finer scales. So these would be in places like major estuaries like Puget Sound, Chesapeake Bay. And the justification for the size and scope of the project should match the needs of the partner entity. The second priority is to evaluate the capability of existing ocean carbonate system assets, including federal and state time series within the area of interest to adequately characterize the carbonate system in response to the needs of that partner entity. That's key. And then third, to explore alternative configurations of an ocean carbonate system observing network that would minimize errors in 3D mapped fields of interest, maximize synergies with the existing observational assets, and characterize uncertainty in the measured fields and minimize operational costs for the identified partner. So a note here is that while the outcomes from projects funded under option 2, which is the field intensive option, outcomes may fall short of directly delivering on the priority elements, but they should be conducted to ensure the maximum success of a subsequent OSCE, so a subsequent option 1 project, carry it out under a future opportunity. In terms of priorities for option 1B, they're listed here. So first, studies co-developed via a collaborative advisory committee assessing high accuracy ocean carbon parameters in a climate critical global region. Second, to evaluate the capability of existing ocean carbon system assets within the region of interest to adequately characterize the carbon system, And third, to explore alternative configurations of an ocean carbon observing network that would minimize errors in mapped fields of interest, maximize synergies with existing observational assets, and minimize operational costs. So those are the three options. And now I'll turn it over, or no, I'll go through eligibility, then I'll turn it over to Erica. The eligible parties for this opportunity are institutions of higher education, nonprofits, state, local, Indian tribal governments, for-profit organizations, or U.S. territories, and federal agencies that have the authority to receive transfers of funds. So PIs should be employees of an eligible entity as listed here, and applications should be submitted through that entity, and any non-federal researcher should comply with institutional requirements for application submission. Non-NOAA federal applicants will be required to submit certifications or documentation showing that they have the legal authority to accept funds for this type of research. And foreign researchers must apply as subawards or contracts through an eligible U.S. entity. And we do want to say that the DOC and NOAA support cultural and gender diversity and encourage applications involving women and minority individuals and groups. In addition, we're strongly committed to broadening the participation of historically Black colleges and universities, Hispanic serving institutions, tribal colleges and universities, and institutions that work in underserved areas. So we encourage applications involving the previously mentioned institutions to apply. And now I will hand it over to Erica to go through proposal requirements.
Thank you, Liza. So full proposals are due March 17th at 11:59 p.m., so right before midnight. And a full proposal contains 16 required elements with a few additional optional elements. So I'm just going to sort of step through what those are. The first item in the application package is the standard form 424. This is basically just a summary form that indicates the total amount of funding for the proposal and contains all of the basic applicant information. It's a standard grants form. The second item is a summary title page. This identifies the project's title, the PIs and all the co-PIs, their names and affiliations and contact information. And this should also include the requested funding amounts for each fiscal year. And if there are subawards or partners, ideally that information will be broken out by partner as well. The next item is an abstract or project summary, and that's again 1 page. And there's more details can be found on that in the NOFO, but that's basically just a short 1 paragraph summary of the project. And then the project description, or item 4, is the meat of the proposal. The project description can be up to 15 pages in total for the first 5 elements, with 2 additional pages for the data management plan. So that's a 17 total pages for the proposal. The proposed research narrative, which is sections 1 through 4, should be thorough and explicitly indicate the relevance to the goals and scientific priorities that we mentioned before by identifying the topic that's being addressed, the region proposed for the work, and the relevance of the work to advancing or optimizing carbon observing systems. It should describe the topic that is being addressed by the proposal. Oh, that looks like that's duplicated. Sorry about that. Discuss the proposed project lends value to the program goals and provides direct technical assistance to the co-development partner entity. And this is a really important piece and is something new that we're doing with this, is having these projects be done in conjunction with someone who has an observing system or data observing needs. So that third element will be very key to the success of the proposal. Identifying the function of each PI and partner entity. So the lead PIs will be responsible for communicating with the program manager and all reporting required, and they will also be the primary liaison to the advisory committee. These projects will have an advisory committee, and the structure and function is listed below. The advisory committee should have at least 5 people. They should include modelers, observing experts, resource managers, or other potential end users of the optimized observing system in the region. The NOAA program managers and the partner entity are also de facto members of the advisory committee. And then the proposal also includes a data management plan, which is 2 pages. So in total, your proposal should be 17 pages, 15 pages for the initial elements, and then 2 pages for a data management plan. You also have a references cited section. There should be a milestone chart that maps out how all elements of the proposal build and lead toward the final deliverables. There should be a biographical sketch or CV for all PIs and co-PIs, 2 pages each. There should be current and pending support for all PIs and co-PIs. Any permitting information necessary, and if permits are not required, then you do need to state that so that we know that this element has been addressed. Accomplishments from prior federal support for all PIs and co-PIs should be included. And for this, I just want to highlight, you don't have to, list all of your accomplishments from all of your prior federal support. Please just choose 1 award to highlight per PI, and then explain your accomplishments from that 1 award that is most relevant to this grant. A budget narrative and justification is required, and if more than 1 institution is collaborating, a separate budget justification is required for each sub-award. And these budget narratives and justifications need to be detailed, and we have lots more information on how detailed these need to be in the NOFO. And if you have any questions about that or any of the elements here, please feel free to reach out. Another required form, element 12, is the CD 511, and this is a certification regarding lobbying. We have a link here for the form, and you're required to complete the bottom section of this regardless of if the institution lobbies the US government or not. The next element is the standard form 424B. You sign and date the bottom. This is a form that's saying, this is not a construction program, this is a grant. Then you sign, the next form is standard form 424A, and this is the budget form. And this form should match your budget justification and narrative. So please, before you submit, double check that this budget form matches your budget justification and narrative. Item 15 is an Excel file that includes all of your US and foreign collaborators, advisors, and advisees for each investigator to complete with their corresponding institutions. And then the key contacts form, it is a standard form that just lists the key contacts for each organization, whether that's the budget point of contact, the representatives, the PI, all that information is listed there. There's a few optional but highly recommended elements, and those are a list of potential merit reviewers, and that, if you include this, should be included on a single page by itself after the summary title page. Another optional but highly recommended element is letters from any unfunded collaborators verifying their contribution to the project, and also letters from any advisory committee members verifying their willingness to serve in that capacity. So next, I'm going to move on to the evaluation criteria. We're going to highlight the 5 elements on how reviewers will be reviewing these proposals. So the first element is the importance and or relevance and applicability of the project to the program goals, and this is 30% of the total. And this ascertains whether the proposed work has intrinsic value, is relevant to NOAA's mission, and responsive to the requirements of the Forum Act, Does the research address the priorities stated in the NOFO? Are the expected research products clearly identified, including how they will improve the regional ocean carbonate system observing? So as you're writing your proposal, please be keeping these criteria in mind, because this is how reviewers will be evaluating you. The second one is scientific and technical merit. This is also 30%. And this assesses whether the approach is technically sound or innovative, if the methods are appropriate, whether there are clear project goals and objectives. And it also addresses whether the proposal includes an acceptable data management plan that includes details on the types of environmental data and information and how and when that data will be publicly accessible. The next criteria is qualifications of the applicants, and this is 10%. This ascertains whether the applicant possesses the necessary education, experience, training, facilities, admin resources to accomplish the project, and this includes the capability of the investigator and collaborators to complete the work as evidenced by past research accomplishments, previous cooperative work, timely communication, sharing of findings, data, and other research products. And it may also include experience and capacity for communicating with advisory committees, community partners, and coordination with co-PIs. As I stated, this proposal has a co-development piece, so this demonstration of co-development and communication is an important element of this work. Project cost, this is 10%, and the budget will be evaluated to determine if it's realistic and commensurate with the project needs and timeframe. And then the last element is education, outreach, and co-development, and this is 20%. So for this, we will assess whether the project provides a focused and effective education and outreach strategy that includes diversity and inclusion regarding NOAA's mission to protect the nation's natural resources. The applicant must include plans for communicating and disseminating the results of the research in ways that are appropriate to inform the relevant entities that will use the results of the work, including specific products, outcomes, the timing of the proposed work that will be used in achieving this goal. And this will also include the plans for the formation of the advisory committee. For options 1A and 2, so that's the US, LME, and the field campaign options, this will also evaluate the co-development piece with the partner entity. It'll evaluate if there's an appropriate partnership in place, have the partners indicated that they have had past successes with co-development, either as separate entities or together, and if not, have they included sufficient details to outline how the co-development would function? Do the partners indicate how they collaborated on the proposal ideas? Are they assigned roles conducive to co-development? And is it clear how the knowledge transfer, capacity building, technical assistance will be facilitated throughout the project? So just briefly going to go over the review and selection process. When the proposals come into the OAP, we will do an initial administrative review just to determine compliance with all of those listed elements, the 16 elements I previously mentioned. Any late, ineligible, incomplete, or non-responsive applications may be eliminated from further review. So if your application comes in late or is missing one of the 16 required elements, it may not go on to further review. So please do, at the end of the NOFO, there's a checklist. So please use that to help yourself organize and get all the pieces submitted on time. After we receive all the applications and check them for minimum requirements, we'll then send them out for mail review, and then they'll be reviewed by up to at least three subject matter experts, and then those written reviews will be used in a panel review that'll happen in the spring, and then funding decisions will be communicated to PIs in June. So a few things I want to go over. These applications need to be submitted via grants.gov. In order to submit an application in grants.gov, you must have a grants.gov account, and you must also have a sam.gov account. And now, since NOAA has changed its back-end grants management system, all applicants also need to register via the ERA Commons And registration for all these various processes and new systems can take a while, especially if you know, if something goes wrong or given the holidays, sometimes these things can take a while. So I highly encourage you, if you are planning on applying for this, to start some of these registration processes now, so that this doesn't hold you back when you're trying to submit your application in March. And with that, I want to leave plenty of time to take any questions and answer any of your questions. Just want to remind you all that the due date for these proposals is March 17th at 11:59 p.m. And if you have any questions that you think of after this, please do feel free to send me an email. I'm going to go ahead. Alex, do you want to, we have a number of questions here. I'll go ahead and read through the ones that we've already answered. So Rick asked, what is the chance that funds will be appropriated for this effort? Which, great question, Rick. We did make that caveat very clear that funds are dependent on appropriations, and given the current budget uncertainty, we're not sure exactly how much funds we'll have for this, but we do have set aside funds to fund up to at least 2 projects. And we hope that we'll get full funding and we'll be able to fund up to 5 projects. And we will be posting the PowerPoint that has all of these helpful links, a recording of this webinar, and all of the questions that we're asking right now and answering. We'll be putting all of that on our website, and that should be available probably sometime end of next week, but definitely before the holidays. All right. Okay, I have a question from Darren, and it says, for option 1A, can this also include collecting field data if it's within the budget? For example, could we implement the results of the OSCE in the final year? That is a great question. I don't have the NOFO right in front of me right now, but I feel like I remember it saying somewhere that you can't. Can I get back to you on that, Darren? I'm not entirely sure if that option explicitly precludes collecting additional data, but I can get back to you on that. The next question, a minor point, but is this limited to OSSEs or the broader application of OSEs? Yeah, great question, Rick. I am not an expert in either observing system simulation experiments or observing system, I forget what OSE stands for. I think that as long as the proposal addresses the question, the specific methodology that is chosen is fine, as long as it addresses the question and the intent of the NOFO. Is that helpful, Rick? Please let me know if you guys have any more questions. Well, I am not seeing any more questions in the question box, but I will give you guys another 30 seconds or so to sort of see if any other ones have come up, in case any of you are madly typing away. All right, well, with that, we will end early, and everyone can head out into their weekends. Have a great weekend, all. Thank you.